Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into all around body recomp, what it is, and it's how I define it. But first, before I dive into that, so as I talked about last week, the enrollment is open for my performance recomp method. It's my high touch one-on-one coaching program for those over 30 who want to build muscle, drop body fat, and optimize how they feel and perform in and out of the gym. So again, in this program, we're focused on three outcomes: a physique that actually reflects your effort, performance that you can feel in the gym and outside of the gym, and then lastly, health markers that support your energy, sleep, recovery, long-term progress, so you feel good as well too, because I think that's often neglected. So if you're interested in that, you can follow out the link in the show notes to set up a call, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. Just shoot me over performance and we can chat about that in more detail. If you want more information on the program, go check out my bonus episode I dropped last week there. So with that out of the way, I want to dive into today's topic. So what I'm going to do is, I feel like when people hear body recomp, they automatically think that, oh, I'm too advanced for that. Hey, body recomp can only happen in certain situations. And I feel like people look at it from this very small lens of you're building muscle and losing body fat at the same time. So a lot of times when I promote recomp or my program, people are saying like, I'm just too advanced for that. And again, that's not the case. First, I'm going to talk about this. People have a larger runway to do both than they think. Now, again, are we going to be maximizing both at the same time? Probably not, but people have a larger runway than they think. It's not just for advanced or for less advanced people, just because, again, the way people go about body comp change or losing weight, gaining weight, it does not set them up for optimal body composition change. There's that. Those are the two big things really with that, right? Like people have a larger runway than they think, and they're not maximizing the things that they're doing to actually see both at the same time. And again, I want to go over this because I think if we can reframe it, we can understand what I mean by body recomp. You'll have a better understanding of where I'm coming at from this. Because people put body recomp differently than, say, gaining and or bulking and cutting cycles, when I think they're all the same, and it's just about what we do, and it's super important. So first, I want to start you off with the definition. So real quick, let's do this. So recomp does not always equal building muscle and losing body fat at the same time. To me, recomp is improving your body composition over time, and we're always focused on your body composition. That's always at the front. It's your scale weight. Yes, we obviously want to look at scale weight, but that's not the most important factor. Your body composition is the most important thing. And that really comes down to your inputs that you're doing outside of the energy balance, which I'll talk about. So let's first come up with the definition of recomposition. So it's the act of composing something again, a restructuring or reassembling of parts to form a new whole. So recomposition literally means rebuilding, reorganizing, reshaping. And so in this context of our body, we're reshaping our body. We're reorganizing the weight of our body to more muscle and less body fat. And again, where you exactly fall on that's going to be dependent on how far you want to push it, your genetics, etc. So again, that's what we're talking about when we say recomposition. In the literature, I think it just got caught up as like recomposition was this automatic fat loss and muscle gain at the same time, which again, that's one way to do it, right? So again, when most people hear body recomposition, they assume it means losing fat and building muscle at the same time. That can happen. And as I said initially, it does more often than you think it does. Now, as I'll talk about, the energy balance you're in is going to be the big thing that determines what your body prefers and what's going to put your body in the best position to add muscle, lose fat, etc. But I think to some degree, a lot of people, I would say 95% of people, are able to see fat loss and muscle gain at the same time. Now, again, I'm going to talk about this. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the more fat we lose at one time, the less likely the less muscle we are going to build. But people think of it as an on-off switch of, hey, you're either building muscle or you're not building muscle. But this all happens at different rates. And again, what we do is is going to be the most important thing there. But again, what I'm really talking about is a long-term shift in your body composition. We're losing fat, building muscle, and reshaping your physique and health over time. We can't neglect the health side of things. I think that's also part of a body recomp where I feel like it gets lost in the traditional bulking and cutting cyclings, which again, you will find out here as I talk about this. I still do quote unquote bulking and cutting cycles. It's just, again, we're coming at it from a lens of body comp and not just chasing numbers on the scale or chasing numbers in terms of calories and macros and whatnot there. Again, to me, body recomp means we're always focused on your body composition. We're not just chasing scale weight. So at the forefront of what we're doing is we're always looking at body composition. So this is a good example of this would be meal timing around like sleep or late at night, right? There's the myth of, oh, hey, if you eat past, say, 6 p.m., you're going to gain a bunch of body fat. And we know that's not true. However, that's been taken so far to whereas people that only focus on calories in, calories out, or hey, it's only total calories that matters. It doesn't matter. And what that leads to is people just focusing on calories in, calories out. And yes, their calories are in check. But again, that only tells us where your weight's going to be trending if we're in terms of the energy balance. And what we're actually doing is going to be the most important. When we eat too close to bed, it's going to impact sleep. That's going to have downstream effects of how your body utilizes the food you give it. That's going to impact your hormones into where you're not going to be able to build as much muscle. You're not going to be able to, you're going to have more hunger and cravings. You're more likely to overeat. So it's going to be easier to get into a positive energy balance, a calorie surplus. And then from a gut health perspective, it's going to impact your gut, which again can lead to you not absorbing all the food, having more inflammation on your body in general. And then this is going to lead to other issues down the line. When we look at it from calories in, calories out, yeah, from a weight perspective, eating late at night, it's not going to do too much. Maybe in the short term, the next day, wake up, you're going to be a little bit heavier in terms of scale weight because you ate later at night. But from an energy balance standpoint, if you're controlling that, yeah, that's going to control your weight. But again, that's not accounting for your body composition. When if you get the thought process, oh, hey, it doesn't matter when I eat so long as my calories are in check. And now you start to eat 75% of your calories at night, you're going to see, to me, if you have someone that eats 75% of their calories at night compared to someone who eats 75% earlier in the day, makes smarter choices around meal timing at night, that person that does that is going to end up with a better body composition over time. Okay, so that's what I mean. We're setting you up for the best body composition possible. Again, another example would be sleep. Hey, just go sleep 8 hours. And again, total calories are going to be the most important. But if sleep is off, we're not getting good quality sleep, even though we're getting 8 hours, that's going to impact your body composition over time. So again, it all comes down to this, like people just focus on numbers. Hey, I slept for 8 hours. Hey, my calories were in check. Hey, I went to the gym 4 times. Hey, my scale weight trended up or trended down. This is all good things. Again, these are all good signs, but what we actually do in that process and the quality of those things are going to be the most important, especially when it comes to scale weight. So that's, or when it comes to your body composition. So that's what I mean by we're always focused on your body composition. We're trying to do the things that are going to lead to better body composition. Let's take, sorry, I'm going to keep going here, but another example is calorie surplus for building muscle. So people push scale weight up because they're like, hey, everyone says you need a calorie surplus to build muscle. And again, as I'll talk about today, it's going to put you in a good position to add lean body mass. But how we go about training, what we do in training is ultimately is what's going to drive the body composition. So it's like, that's where people focus on the calorie surplus if they're in or their calories, and then they neglect the training side of things. And so again, it comes down to the quality that we're putting in and making sure our training is geared towards hypertrophy, building muscle. Now, in saying all this, the scale is one tool we use to help gauge energy balance, which is going to tell us what your body is more likely to do. And so I'm going to go over each one here, but what I mean by that is where your weight's trending over time, that's going to tell you if your body's going to be adding tissue or putting your body in the best position to add tissue, or if you're in a negative energy balance, that's going to tell your body, like that's going to set you up to be in a better position to lose body fat. But we still have to do things in that process to make sure that happens. And this is also dependent on your body composition as well too. So I think too, before we dive into that, I just want to reiterate that recomp, it's not a phase. It's not a phase that we do of, oh, hey, you're in a recomp phase right now. It's a framework, right? And so most people are doing something that affects their body comp. They just don't realize it's working against them or working for them, okay? And it's not just a magic zone of fat loss plus muscle gain at the same time. That can be what happens, but that's not always going to be the case, right? So again, recomp, maybe there's a phase that we do where you're going to you're going to lose fat and gain muscle more at the same time. But again, it's a framework, right? It's telling us we're focused on our body composition and not just scale weight there. So hopefully that summary helps there. All right, so let's talk about the energy balance now and how we can utilize the scale here in this process. Let's look at weight trending down. So you look at your scale weight over time, it's trending down. You're in a calorie deficit. You're in a energy deficit. That's going to put your body in the best position to break down your current energy that you have on your body. Now, where it pulls it from is ultimately going to come down to your inputs. And this is where the concept of recomp comes into play here. And so this, like, in order to see fat loss, like you need to be in a calorie deficit. If your weight is just staying the same, I don't ever think you're going to get to the point to where you're building muscle at the same rate that you're losing body fat. It's just not going to happen that way. Muscle's a little bit harder to build than fat loss has to happen. So if your weight is staying the exact same, you're probably not in a big enough deficit to where you're going to see a ton of fat loss, right? You may be in like a small deficit with your weight staying the same, where it's like, hey, you are building some muscle, you're losing some body fat, but you're not going to see this super quick change in your body composition, right? It's like maybe just a tiny deficit, but you may be seeing your measurements changing a little bit in your midsection. You may be seeing your clothes fitting a little bit differently. You may be feeling better, right? But again, at the end of the day, in order to drop body fat, we do need to be in a calorie deficit. You're not going to get there at maintenance, but the scale can get a little cloudy in terms of what's going on there. But it's never going to be this one-to-one, hey, you're going to build 1 pound of muscle and lose 1 pound of fat. It's probably going to be, hey, you're going to lose a pound, like, how would I say this? Like a pound of fat you're going to lose compared to a quarter of a pound of muscle gain. I'm just throwing out numbers. So it'd be like a net positive of 0.75. Again, these are just numbers I'm trying to throw at. There's just so many things that go into it, but that's a way to just visualize it. But again, weight trending down is the only way in which fat loss can happen. You can build muscle here, okay? So this is where this kind of concept of what people typically think recomp is, right? The simultaneous fat loss and muscle gain. So you can build muscle with your weight trending down and in a deficit. However, you're not going to build as much muscle as you would at maintenance or a small surplus. Okay. That's just a matter of the fact. And this is, I think, where things get confusing for people is they automatically think that, hey, I can gain muscle in a deficit, not realizing that you are hurting that process at least somewhat. So if you're trying to absolutely maximize muscle growth, we don't want to be in a deficit for extended periods of time. However, I do genuinely believe that a lot of people are in a position where, just based on their methods, their current body composition, they have room here to build at least a little bit of muscle while they're fat loss dieting, right? And this is going to probably be the quickest way, depending on your body composition, which is really the big thing at play here. This is the quickest way to see results, right? To see physical change in your body is going to be getting into this. But not everyone's in the best position to be here yet. And again, I think I will hit on that at some point in this episode. Remember, we can build muscle in a deficit, but if you do it right, however, again, it's just limited. So if your inputs are poor, you may lose muscle and not as much fat. So that is something that we want to take into consideration here. And this is where the inputs come into play. And again, body composition is going to play a huge role here. So the higher your body fat is, the more you're going to be able to see some muscle growth here while dropping some weight. The leaner you are, the less likely this is to happen. And I'm going to go over rates of loss and what that sets you up for here in a little bit, but I just want to get this general concept of where your weight's trending, how this is going to impact things. So weight staying around the same equals your maintenance, right? There's not going to be any fat loss happening here. I did go over, there's that exception to the rule where you could be, quote unquote, not really at maintenance, not really seeing your weight trend up too much, not really seeing it trend down a ton. And you could be losing a little bit of body fat, but it's going to be so little that you would be in a small deficit. So you would still technically be in a deficit. It's just, again, you don't have a lot of muscle, or maybe your methods that you were doing before were just terrible. You had super low protein. You haven't spent any time trying to build any muscle. Then again, that could be someone that they're going to see a little bit, they might see a little bit of fat loss there. They're putting themselves in a really good position to add muscle in this process. Again, these are all like in real life, these things are a little bit harder to see, but again, generally speaking, that's what's going to happen there. But when we're at maintenance, we're not really seeing our weight trend down or anything like that. There's probably minimal to no fat loss happening here. Again, if you are losing body fat, you are in a deficit in some form or fashion, but muscle's never going to be one-to-one in terms of gain versus loss, etc. And again, you can build muscle here, especially if you're newer, returning, and or training smart with great nutrition and recovery. So again, this is where a lot of people think that they can't do anything here when they're at maintenance calories, but you can build a lot of muscle here. And I like to put a lot of people here for a period of time, really get their inputs dialed in, and then they can get more out of their surplus if they decide to go into that later. But let's understand this is also based on your goals. Maybe for you don't want to necessarily maximize muscle growth, so you'd rather not gain fat in the process. So this is the perfect place to be if you do want to build some muscle, but you're not like, hey, I want to be super jacked. I think this is where it gets lost for a lot of people is they push like surplus is the best to build muscle. You need it. And they don't consider people's goals, right? They just think, hey, everybody wants to maximize muscle growth as much as possible. And again, that's probably a good spot to be. Muscle growth is hard, so maybe you do need to be there, but that's going to come at a cost of probably gaining some body weight or body fat if you're seeing your scale weight trend up at least a good amount over time. And for a lot of people, that's not worth it. And that's okay. I think we try to force that onto people and we don't need to do that. If you don't, I think people underestimate, like we just don't always need to maximize muscle growth. Yes, it's tough, but not everyone's trying to be as jacked as possible. They would probably be like, I think we underestimate how happy people would be with a little bit more muscle and a lot less body fat versus, hey, a lot more muscle and not a lot less body fat there. But again, you will not lose body fat here. We're not going to see this. You're going to set yourself up to see good body composition change down the line. But I think during this period of time, if you're sitting around the same amount of calorie or same weight, adding some muscle, you may notice a little bit, but you're not going to see this massive change in your physique here, right? But you're setting yourself up to see that later. This is where, again, you need to go to a fat loss phase to really see that change in your body there. So again, I think we need to set those expectations of what's going to happen here. And then lastly, weight trending up. So let me summarize the maintenance again. So you're not going to see any fat loss here. I gave you some kind of caveats to that, but you can build muscle here, and you can build a good amount of muscle here if your inputs are right. If we're focused on maximizing body composition, you can see some good muscle gain here if done right. And understand it, like a lot of people, this is a great spot to be because they don't necessarily want to maximize muscle growth to the max there. All right, so then weight trending up. So this is a calorie surplus. Over time, your weight is trending up. This could mean muscle gain, it could mean fat gain, or it could mean both. Again, the quality of our inputs are going to be the biggest thing here. Training, food, sleep, stress. This is going to determine what your body builds or stores. Again, if we get the inputs in check, we can make sure that more of the weight that we gain is going to be muscle versus body fat, but it's never going to be 1-0. Again, maybe in certain situations it's 90-10, maybe 80-12, 50-50. As our inputs get worse and we gain weight quicker and quicker, that's going to more of that weight that you gain is going to be more body fat than muscle. But again, when we're gaining weight, we're going to be putting on some. And again, when I say gaining weight, a specific amount per week, because again, with maintenance, you can also slowly see your scale weight trend up over time. I talked about this all my building phase episode a couple weeks back, so definitely go and check that out there. But again, our weight trending up over time, that's going to put your body in the best position to build things versus break them down. But again, what we do in that process, our inputs are going to be the most important here. Now, to make this all, to go into even more context here, your current body composition, training history, goals, and lifestyle are all going to influence which direction we take and how aggressive we get. So where you're currently at, what you've been doing, where you want to go, and your lifestyle is going to determine, hey, are we going to focus a little bit more on pushing your scale weight down? Are we going to focus on keeping it around the same, or are we going to push it up? Someone with more body fat to lose, it's probably better to start in a deficit. Maybe it's a bit more aggressive, maybe it's less aggressive. I'm going to talk about situations where you would do that. Or maybe it's a combination of both. You do a little bit of aggressive, then you slow down, right? Like it doesn't have to be an either or type of situation. Someone who's leaner and stuck spinning their wheels, maybe they might need to push scale weight up a bit. And so they might need to build to keep progressing. So maybe it's a surplus, maybe it's around maintenance, or maybe it's a combo of both. Again, as I talked about in my episode on my new approach to building phases, we could do a surplus for a short amount of time, get your scale weight up a bit, and then we could go to maintenance. Like I think people think it has to be this either or, like the whole time you have to be gaining, the whole time, like you can switch things up during your phase. It doesn't have to be all the same. And to come back to the person with more body fat to lose, if you keep them at their maintenance calories, they're going to see some good. They're going to be able to build some good habits. They're going to see some body comp change. But as I said, to really see that change, you're going to have to drop some body fat. So you're going to eventually have to get to the point to where you do push your scale weight down and get into a deficit. But you can still see progress at maintenance. It just might not be as quick as it typically would be. And here's the thing with all this too. And then you switch over time. You have more focus on the fat loss side of things, and then you have more focus on building muscle and maximizing health and metabolism performance during different periods. So again, it doesn't have to be an either or of, hey, you're just doing a deficit for the rest of your life. No, it's probably going to be a combination. Hey, we're going to spend a little bit more time trying to decrease some body fat while potentially building some muscle. And then when you get to a certain point, now we're going to try to limit fat gain and have you add some lean body mass, or again, just work on your habits. And then we push the deficit again. And in that process, we maximize your metabolism, health, et cetera, to where now you can push a little bit lower. Too many people just try to go straight through and just push a deficit for extended periods of time, and it doesn't always work out that way. You need to take some time to get back to your maintenance to really have this be something that lasts long term. But again, no matter what, maximizing body comp within the given constraints during each is what we focus on. So again, if it is, hey, a deficit, all right, how can we maximize our body composition during this? What are the things that we know work there? When we're building, again, based on your body composition, if you have, let's say you lost a little bit of body weight, but now you have moderate levels of body fat, I'm not going to push you to go try and gain a bunch of weight. Like, that just doesn't make sense. But if you're someone who's lean, you just came off a fat loss phase and you are pretty shredded, it's like, it doesn't make sense to now keep you at maintenance or try more for, let's push your scale weight up. But again, in that process, we're going to make sure we maximize the amount of muscle that you gain versus fat. So again, that's what we're always focused on, is your body composition. No, it's not always about losing fat and building muscle at the same time. It's about changing the composition of your body over time. That's recomposition. So I hope that makes sense. Now, where I want to go for the rest of this is I want to talk about different rates of weight loss, weight gain, and how that can potentially impact things and what we need to look at there. Again, if you do want to, as I've mentioned throughout, if you want to improve your body composition, you're going to need to go through a fat loss phase at some point. Like, that's going to be the thing that really shows off the progress and makes that rapid change. And again, that means a calorie deficit, not maintenance, not reverse dieting, not toning. You need an actual deficit. And so here's where most people get tripped up, is when they hear me talking about body comp, they think that they assume aggressive fat loss is always bad, or they think slow fat loss is the only way to do it right. But the truth is, both can work when done at the right time in the right way. So again, fat loss can be effective, but it comes with trade-offs like performance dips, et cetera. We'll talk about this. So let's talk faster weight loss, okay? So this is going to be a larger calorie deficit. Let's say you're looking at losing a percent of body weight or more per week. 500 plus calories below maintenance would be what we're aiming for here in terms of if we're just looking at calorie numbers. The pros of this approach is faster fat loss is going to equal quicker changes in your appearance, right? And you're going to be ripping some body fat off if you do it right. That's going to, like I said, that's what's going to really show off your progress. It can work well for short focused phases. So again, this can help condense your fat loss phase versus going slower. You're going to have to zoom out a little bit to lose the same amount of body fat. And it can be super motivating early on. You're going to see that scale weight drop right off the bat, and that can be super motivating, right, to keep you going. Cons: there's going to be a higher risk of body using muscle as energy, especially with poor training and nutrition methods and at lower body fat levels. So we do run that risk of potentially losing body fat, but are losing muscle versus body fat in this process, but it's context dependent. And if we do things right, it's probably not going to happen. You have a greater chance of nutrient deficiencies here, right? So more fatigue, irritability, poor recovery. Just makes sense. You're going to be bringing in less calories, so you're going to have a higher risk of missing out on certain nutrients. And it doesn't pair well with high volume and high intensity training. This is also where I see people make a big mistake is they try to go super quick with their weight loss, and then they also try to throw a ton of training on top of it. And that just doesn't work out. Like you're going to unfortunately have to dial back on your training. Now we still want to get some movement and we still want to hit a minimum amount there, but we're going to have to do the minimum effective dose versus throwing a ton of volume on top. And this just isn't great for a performance related thing. So if you are really focused on like maximizing strength or performance elsewhere, this just isn't going to be great for you. And so again, this is best. So this quicker kind of weight loss. So when we think big picture here, when would I apply this, right? Because as I talked about, body recomp is just focusing on your body composition over time. It's making sure that your body comp's in a good spot. Again, with a body recomp approach, we still could totally take an aggressive fat loss phase approach here. And so who would this be best for? Individuals with higher levels of body fat, right? So you have higher levels of body fat, so your body's going to be more likely to use that as where the energy is coming from, especially for lifting weights. We're eating enough protein. We're focused on the other things that I always talk about in terms of body recomp. So again, we're looking at men, particularly around 15 to 20% body fat. Why I say men here is because I do think for women in particular, if you're normal to maybe slightly high BMI, I don't think that an aggressive approach is always going to be the right thing for you. You have to find what works for you. But I think generally speaking, men versus women, men are going to handle a more aggressive deficit and fat loss approach better than women. Best for shorter durations of this, right? So if we compare a slower rate of loss to a quicker rate of loss, you're going to have to do this. This is going to have to be a shorter duration. And you're also going to have to use days or weeks at maintenance cals more often with a more aggressive approach to take some stress off the body because it's going to add stress to the body. But no matter what, with the duration of how long we do this, our biofeedback needs to be the guiding factor. People ask me, how long do I need? It doesn't matter. It's based off of your current body composition, but also how you're feeling. If you're just feeling terrible, training's awful, you're super hungry, yes, we could look at your inputs and see if we can improve those. But at the end of the day, you need to take a break. So tip, you need to really focus on your inputs here. You always do, but more so here when we go more aggressive. Good nutrition habits, enough protein, and maybe even more than normal, good sleep and circadian health, managing overall stress load on the body, and the right environment, etc. all need to be things that we really need to focus on here. So this is why I think doing this on your own, if you've never done it before, probably not the wisest thing. I think having someone who is into body comp is super important to guide you here on this. But again, the big takeaway here is body recomp approach doesn't always have to be slow fat loss, right? But again, understand that the quicker we go, the less we are going to build muscle here in this process. So that would be the other thing is you're less likely to add muscle in that process. But maybe for you, that's based on everything we went over, that's not super important right now during this time. Now let's talk slower weight loss. So this is a smaller calorie deficit. Think 300 to 500 calories or less below maintenance. So now we're looking at, hey, you're losing like 0.25% to 0.5-ish% of body weight, 0.75% of body weight per week. Again, this isn't a black or white thing where it's like, hey, you go from 0.75 to 0.76. Now all of a sudden it's fast. That's not the case. This is just more how we think about these things. Pros, easier to support performance in the gym. Again, it's still not going to be as good as it would be at maintenance or small surplus, but it's going to better support your performance in the gym, which could help your body composition. I think that's part of where this helps is you're going to put yourself in a better position to maintain performance during a cut. And so it's going to help you to build muscle in this process. Again, we know though that it's not going to be as good as being in a deficit or is in a maintenance or surplus. But you can, if we're thinking about this on a sliding scale, maybe this is a lot of muscle growth. This is no muscle growth, and anything past here, we're losing muscle. Instead of maximizing it, maybe we're closer to minimal to no muscle being built, right? Like you're closer on that side of it versus all or nothing. And then again, it's dependent on what you do, your genetics, body composition, etc. You're also going to see fewer recovery issues here. You're going to feel better overall. Lower risk of hormonal or micronutrient disruptions, again, equals you feel better. Slight potential for muscle gain, especially in newer lifters or higher body fat or someone who used to have suboptimal methods, but again, still not as good as it would be at maintenance or small surplus. And you can be a bit more flexible with nutrition choices. You're able to be a little bit more flexible from day to day if you need to. Cons, you're going to see slower changes on the scale and potentially in the mirror with this approach. Now, I do think at a certain point, maybe as things compound, I have a perfect example here of my client, Nadia, who from 65 kg to 60 kg, it was not a ton of change. But once she hit this 58 kg, now it's she's not going any faster, but she's just seeing more change. So I think it's just slower change initially with this kind of slower approach. And it's just a longer time out of building at maintenance or small surplus with this approach. Just because again, now yes, it's better from a lean body mass perspective to go a little bit slower. You're going to be able, but you still are in a state where you're not putting your body in the best position to add muscle. And from a metabolism maximization standpoint or optimization standpoint, this isn't going to be the right place. It's just going to be longer time out of building unless you can go shorter with it, but you're just not going to lose as much body fat. So that would be the potential trade-off there. But you have all those other pros as well too. And with staying here, like this kind of slower weight loss is you eventually can get to the point to where if you stay here too long, your body may adapt to this caloric amount and you end up with an artificially lower maintenance intake. So your body will adapt a little bit. However, this is reversible once we just go back to maintenance, but people can get stuck here where they see the slow weight gain and they think this is awesome, this is where they want to stay. And then their body does adapt to that lower caloric intake. And so you will find that you're probably not maximizing your metabolism if you stay here for really long periods of time. And we're talking, again, 6 to 12 months more from there. But again, this can be a good place to be for those reasons. This is going to be best for women due to hormones and overall stress response to large deficits, individuals at lower body fat levels, and anyone prioritizing training performance and just enjoys working out a lot. That's the other big thing too, is because we're going to be having more food, you're going to be able to train a little bit more as well too here in this process. So here's my thoughts. There's no right or wrong way to go about this. It depends on your current body comp, goals, preferences, lifestyle, stress load, et cetera, et cetera. So we're always taking these things into consideration. But the key is that fat loss isn't enough for everything. Eventually, you should and need to get to the point to where you feel enough. And this is where I talk about, hey, maybe we're a little bit more fat loss focused for your recomp, but eventually we go to, hey, maybe now we're more building focused. And again, when we say building, it's yes, building muscle, but it's also building up your metabolism, your health, et cetera. Again, you also don't have to be locked into one approach. Maybe for the first few weeks, you were more aggressive and then you dial back, or vice versa. It's safer from a body comp perspective to be a bit more aggressive with weight loss than it is weight gain, especially if your methods are in line. So if we're going to choose which one to be a bit more aggressive with, I'm going to choose, hey, be in a deficit as more aggressive versus being more aggressive in weight gain, because you're just going to gain more body fat. Lastly, a faster approach is tough to maintain for multiple weeks on end. So most people end up under a 300 to 500 calorie deficit or less over time. So it's, hey, which one is better? But it's like people just have a hard time sticking to a deficit larger than 500 calories anyway. So they end up being in this 300 to 500 one without them even trying. So there's that. Again, it's very dependent. So now let's just real quickly talk about weight gain, because I think this one's a little bit more straightforward. Generally speaking, when we're outside of a deficit, that's going to put our body in a better position to build up. And again, I said build up your metabolism, your health, and your muscle. But the quicker we go with the weight gain, the more it's going to be fat gain. So this is where I'm saying, like, yes, it's going to put you in the best position to build muscle. But if we go crazy with it, I've done this in the past. I've talked about this many times. You're just going to gain more body fat than you need. And now you have to lose that. And this also comes back to what I said earlier, where a lot of people don't necessarily want to maximize muscle growth either. So it's like, why would we put them through that? But again, if you do want to maximize muscle growth, I think it is going to come at some period of time where you do gain a little bit of weight. Again, is it all at one time? Maybe not. It just really depends on there. So that's kind of my thoughts on the weight gain side of things. I think generally speaking, you should always go way slower with the weight gain and or just keep it around the same and slowly see it trend up over time. Versus fat loss, we have some options in terms of what we can do. But hopefully this summed up body recomp for you. So now you have a better idea of what it is and how it's just very context dependent in terms of the exact approach we take. And this is where I think the performance recomp method is different, is I do take all these things into consideration, and then we figure out where the best place is for you to start and to go. And we're taking everything into consideration: your training history, your current lifestyle, things you have coming up, body composition, etc. And so again, just as a reminder, enrollment is open for the performance recomp method. I am only taking on 5 people. If you are interested in this, now's the time to do it. I'm closing enrollment on May 1st. So make sure you reach out, talk to me. We'll go from there. Again, the link to set up calls in the show notes, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. So that's it for this episode. I'll chat with you next time.